So today we're going to be building on the work we did last week with James Evans, where we were learning about the importance of the basics in 365 and digital. So let's take us through some of the content that we're going to be doing. So today I really wanted to spend a little bit of time going back to things where we perhaps assume knowledge, and we assume that we know everybody knows these things. And the simple reality is we don't. These are new things that are constantly developing, better ways of working than we all normally all use. So today we're going to take you through a bit of a whistle-stop tour of the things that we cover in basics. So we're not going to be covering anything that you shouldn't have access to. We're not going to be covering Power Automates or flows or Power BI or any of those things. We're going to be talking about the things that might help you on your day-to-day use of the tools. So I thought it was really important to perhaps have a quick look at how information flows around the 365 environment and how you can tailor it. Now, the bad news is Outlook and email is still going to be around and an important part of our communication for a long time to come in my eyes. But I think we should be reducing the reliance on it. Email is really for that narrow communication, highly sensitive, perhaps not as urgent and as we perhaps think about, but that's where email sits. What you've got is a lot more volume now in Teams in terms of conversations, online meetings, instant messaging, Teams calls, where you can have a little bit less sensitivity in the scale, but you've got that high urgency, high impact because you can get the people, and you can extend it along the bottom here into how wide an audience you're trying to reach. Viva Engage is a really important part of the future of how we'll engage, and we'll cover the difference between teams and communities in a second, but it will play a bigger role when we're trying to reach a larger audience to engage in conversations. And anchoring those things with SharePoint and SharePoint News and secure video recordings is how we can all join it together. So you can imagine a time where a piece of news comes out from the chief that gets put as a news bulletin. It'll get shared into a force-wide engaged community. They'll get picked up by the PCSO community. You'll have a conversation about it and how it might impact PCSOs in that community. Then a sergeant might pick it up and put it into a Teams conversation with his whole business unit and lead to those conversations, but still going to one version of the truth in the end. So it's a way of thinking of an ecosystem of how we communicate now is a much better way of thinking about it. So that makes us think about a little bit about what's the difference between a Teams and a community. And I'm not using the phrase Teams there to talk about the Microsoft Teams space. I'm trying to talk about grouping people together so you can understand how to better to engage with each other. So people you work closely with is your team, your direct teammates. When you're having a conversation about delivering an outcome, how do we deal with this incident? How do we deal with this? That's where we go. It's linked to the files we'll share, which we'll cover in a second. Content and time sensitivity. The first point of contact really is your team. So that's where you go. And a little golden rule, never replicate a team in Viva Engage. There's no point. If it's a team, it's a team. A community is something different. And it's all covered under that official sensitive banner in the Teams environment. Communities are people who've got similar interests, roles or skills who don't necessarily work in your team. So if you think about, you could have every PCSO in a community, you could have everybody who's Pulsar trained in a community. They don't necessarily work together in a team that often, but it's a community of people with similar interests. It's about conversation about how to do work, not the actual burglary in Acacia Avenue. It's about those non-work conversations as well. It's somewhere where we can have those secure conversations in our own environment. It's always open, not to be urgent, because it's when people pick it up. It's not about that sensitive personal information, and it's less structured. It's that virtual water cooler moment. So that's how you should think about the difference between teams and communities. Communities you perhaps use on Viva, Teams is definitely on Teams. So a couple of things that are real pain points for all of us is email. The amount of emails we all get, and then we start getting copied into emails and we're all trying to have a conversation, and you end up with an email thread that starts with one conversation. You add more people and the conversation gets complex. You start replying to emails that other people have already started replying to, and it becomes very difficult to keep track of a conversation, and you sometimes come into it a little bit partway through when somebody else has already answered the response. This is where, if you take it into a Teams conversation, you'd be much better off at being able to see everybody's response at the same time, seeing if somebody's typing, you think, actually, I'll wait for them to respond before I do. It can give that quicker response. You can get a solution much quicker rather than waiting for everything, and it can reduce that email traffic and clutter. And we've all been on those email threads when it's really challenging to understand what the actual original ask was, and you're scrolling down about 20 pages to find the original email. So this is where perhaps taking that into Teams. So how do you do that? There's a couple of ways, and this could be really beneficial to Teams. I'll cover briefly the first one, which is where you can take an email or a message and share it into a team channel. Now, if you've already got a defined team channel, what you'll find is there's actually an email address for that Teams channel. And the way you find that is go over to the channel, click on the right click it on the three dots at the side, and come down and get the email address for that channel. You can copy that email address, and then you can just simply forward from Outlook any message and it'll appear in Teams. That's great. Bit clumsy, bit complicated. Let me show you a better way. Now in Outlook, whenever you open an email, and we'll show you this live with Gemma in a second where we'll do a quick demo of it live, you will see the Share to Teams button. And that's both in new Outlook and in the current Outlook. And that is a really powerful tool at being able to take an email and to send it to a colleague to take a chat, or a number of colleagues. You can see it'll automatically try and work out who it should include in the chat for you. And you can, of course, do what I've already described and take it to a team already. It shows you the options that you've got. So I think it's probably best if we have a look at that in real life. So in Outlook, when you get a message, you open the message, and you'll see this button at the top of the screen. It will automatically look for who's already CC'd into that email from your tenant and suggest people who you might frequently share things with, or channels. And you can add anyone into it, or you can just send it to that team as I've slain. So let's try it for real. So here we go. Let the demo gods be kind. I'm just going to go and open an email I've sent in. And you can see here's an example email, and I've deliberately included an attachment on this. So what I'm going to do is that I'm using the old Outlook here. I'm going to head over to this button on the top right-hand corner where it says there's a Teams menu. And you can see here, that gives me two options. I can share to Teams, which is what I'm going to demonstrate, or I can actually schedule a meeting with Teams, which will automatically schedule a meeting with Gemma for that meeting, because it's already seen that I've copied Gemma in. I'll just show you the first functionality first of all. So I've clicked the button, and somewhere on one of my windows, I'll drag it in. It's opened a new dialog box, and you can see here it's copied in the people who it knows are involved in the email. So I sent it from my events group inbox to myself and Gemma. I can see here there's two colleagues I do a lot of conversations with. There's one of the groups I'm working with on Learning Lab. So it's been semi-intelligent straight away. So I can add Gemma in, but I actually don't want to involve the events group's inbox, but I might want to include Rachel at this point as well. And I can type a message. I don't know, let's look into this issue and click share. And look, I've even included the attachment on the option. That's sent away, and I can go to Teams. And hopefully, again, there's another window opening in the background somewhere. Yes, it has. So let me bring over the message. Give me a second. I'll go to, how was that? Too many windows open for this demo today. Let me just bring that up. In fact, I'll go to Teams, it'll be easier. Chat. So it should have brought it up, he says. Hopefully, and in typical fashion, the demo gods are playing fast and loose with the technology. So I'll go over to Teams. I've got a Teams environment open on here somewhere. It gives me a tip to just show you the 9 dots. The 9 dots is for everything in Teams and M365. If ever you're trying to find any solutions, just head over to your 9 dots. So in typical ways, it's not working in the demo, but it does work. I promise you it does work. And we'll come back to it again. This is what it looks like in the new Outlook as well. You've got the same button where you click the button, share it to Teams. It opens the same dialog box, and again takes that message off into Teams, and away you go. And again, if I bring in Gemma, there we go. It's loading the email up, and it will send it across. I'm perhaps stretching the capabilities of my laptop right now, doing all this in one go. So that gives you an idea of some of the tech in that. Please have a go at it. You will find you can take conversations out of an email chain resolve it on chat, and then move forward on it very quickly. One of the most common challenges we have is around where do we save our content so everybody can deal with it. And I must have done this slide, probably 2 or 3 years ago when we first did this, when we were trying to understand the environment we're working in. And I think one of the things that we've moved as we move from shared drives to the new SharePoint-based technology and Teams-based technology is understanding that it's really important that things that we're working on behalf of the business, on behalf of policing, should be sitting in your Teams stuff in SharePoint. And behind every single team and channel is a SharePoint environment where the files can be saved. So all your work on cases, incidents, tasks that are coming through sits in SharePoint in your team stuff. And if you save it in there, you can access it and your colleagues can access it, but it's only limited to those people in that team and in that folder. OneDrive for Business is really for your personal stuff, for your HR stuff, for your self-development stuff, things about that doesn't matter if a colleague can't access it if you suddenly became unavailable. So they use those team stuff for shared. So one of the challenges of that is that it's horrible to access it through the browser at times. So people ask, how do we synchronize Teams to make it work? So one of the things that you can do is put a synchronized folder from your SharePoint into your file explorer, the typical file explorer. We'll show you a quick demo of that now. Hopefully this part of the demo will work, because I have practiced this about 4 times just to make sure it would work. So what I'm going to do is just go over to a Teams channel that I'm part of and go over to the files area here and the events folder here. And I've marked a folder green because that's the one I'm going to synchronize. So I want that to be available in my Windows Explorer, the files bit on the computer. So the first thing I'm going to do is open it in SharePoint. That's opened up here on SharePoint. And SharePoint's where the tool is. So you can see in Teams and SharePoint, it's exactly the same. If I go into that folder on Teams, that's what I can see. If I go into the folder on SharePoint, it's exactly the same. And that's the beauty of it. But you've got more functionality when you're in SharePoint. So all I have to do to create a little place on my Windows Explorer is to simply, and Windows Explorer or File Explorer, if you're more used to it as that, is click the sync button. It'll open OneDrive and it'll sync those folders for you. Let that just work a second. Make sure it's syncing. Okay, and again, demo got to playing today, so I'll show you another folder I've already synchronized. So this means that in my normal File Explorer, I've got these little folders marked with this little link icon, which is exactly the same as my SharePoint folder. So I've got instant access. So if you're moving content that was in SharePoint, perhaps you've got to upload it to your record management system and you need to be able to upload it from your desktop, this is how you can do it. So you can easily get into all these elements, bring it in, go into them, find out what's going on. You can go back into any of these folders and you can see this whole folder is constantly synchronized with the SharePoint environment that it's in. Again, it's very simple. I've actually pinned this one to the top to make it easier. So I can always find it. I've pinned it to the top element here. I can pin it to my start menu, anything like that, which means I can get those Windows Explorer files in and make it work for me really well. So just a dead simple way of doing it. Open a folder in Teams, open it in SharePoint, click the sync button to create that direct access to File Explorer. And then if you want to add it to quick access, it's there. But the tip is don't synchronize everything. Otherwise, you'll end up with some errors where they don't conflict. So if you're saving everything in one place, the next thing is how to get to co-authoring. And co-authoring is one of the most powerful tools that you've got. And people worry about version control. So we'll go into co-authoring of a document. So what we've got today is our Teams. This is our script, our plan for today's meeting. And we have it on Teams. I've got it open in Word here, where colleagues can come in and add things in. But I'm going to show you in the browser version just for ease because it's using less power and less technology. So if I head over to the browser and go into Word, and just shows how you can switch between Word on the desktop and Word browser at any point. So here we go. I've already shared this with Gemma, Rachel and Richard, and they can actually type anything they want to on lines and edit content as we go along. So they're all in there now. If I wanted to share it with another colleague while they're doing that, you can see the multitasking that's going on here. I can add another colleague in. So Esther's not available today, but I'll add her in anyway. And I can add a little message to ask Esther to join. Demo. Demo. Send that file over to her. Gemma had a little notification that's coming in. These are the team. You can see exactly where they are. If I wanted to know where Richard was in the document, I can go to his location. And there's Richard, same with Gemma and Rachel. They can all there. We can move around different parts of the document, adding different lines in and co-authoring, which sounds great. But then how do you manage your version control? And this is the bit that people get worried about. If you head over to File and Info tab, you'll see version history. And you can see here now, here's are the different versions of the document. So 2 hours ago, I modified it. Just now, these are the colleagues that are modifying it. And it actually shows all the changes that have been made on the document all the way through. If I wanted to restore it to the document that was there 2 hours ago, click on the button, download that document. I can download a copy. If you're in the desktop version, you can instantly open a second version of the document and make that the new one. And what version history will do is actually continue to show that you've gone back to that version, but keep the one you've gone from there to go back to again if you needed to. So all the control over your version history is there. So you can turn on the changes, show the changes that have been made as we've gone through the document, and save a copy, restore. All those tools are there. So there's all your version control. Now, depending on what your forces set it up as, you'll have different levels of version history, but I've got documents going back absolutely months of different versions there. So I can roll it back, see where we started, go back to understand what changes have been made to it. And that sits across your PowerPoint, your Excel, and your Word documents to be able to manage that. I'll just see if the desktop version will show a little bit more detail. Again, in File, head over to Info. And again, I think it's because I'm sharing it in that many different places at the moment. It's just playing a little bit silly with us on the Gremlins, but you can see the work that's going on. And so this isn't synchronizing. So it gives you really lots of power to be able to co-author, share, and manage information. So again, lots of things you can do with that element. So if you've not tried co-authoring, do try it. It can be really powerful, but it is reliant on you saving in that SharePoint space. One of the colleagues was mentioned to me the other day, he hardly ever powers his computer down because he doesn't know where all these files were and all these tasks were. So I can talk about Task Viewer. And I'm going to ask you to play along live with me and find this little button sitting in your taskbar. Right at the bottom of the screen should be near your search box, near where your Outlook is pinned, is this little Task View button. Now, if you click that button, you will find it brings up, depending on how many screens you're using, loads of different information. First of all, it can help you switch between tasks. So if I press it on my screen now, these are all the different top pieces, windows I've got open right now. And if I wanted to jump to a window, to an Excel, I can do that straight away. On my other screens, I'm seeing all the documents I've edited since the 8th of April. Every document I've edited is available to me, and I can manage them. So really powerful little tool to be able to find what I was working on this last Tuesday. Quickest way of finding that document, that issue, hit the little task button and go to. And if you have used that, if you're playing with it, pop a little comment into the chat. Let us know if you found it. Let us know what you think of it. It can be a really powerful way. I actually used Copilot to ask me to describe it. So it's a task switcher, which allows you to jump from one task to another. It's a function button. It lets you close functions and tabs that you've got open. So if you're working on, say, a Word document and you no longer need it, click that button there. That'll bring all the different open. You can close it without actually opening the Word document. It allows you to have 2 different desktops open. So if you're working on one project for the morning and want to switch to something else in the afternoon, have your desktops there. But the timeline is a really powerful function. It describes it as a time machine. You want to go back and find a document you're working on 2 weeks ago today, Go back to 2 weeks ago today, and all the documents you were editing that day will be sitting there with the latest version ready for you to open. Again, can save you lots of times in finding documents and the content that you're after. Please pop your questions in if you've got anything you'd like us to cover in future ones of these, and we will cover that. Accessibility is one of my pet things. I'll come back to that in a little bit, depending on the time we've got, and I'll leave some questions. But one of the things I really wanted to show you was about reusing slides in PowerPoint. This can save hours and hours and hours. So what I've done here is I grab a screen grab it just in case the demos wasn't playing, but I'll try the live demo in a second. So here's the deck I actually was using right now. I just wanted to grab a piece of content from a slide I've used, probably about a couple of months ago. So I clicked on the reuse slides button, and that opens this little tab down the side, and it looks for the most recent PowerPoints that I've had open. I can also search. You can see in one search box the whole of OneDrive, SharePoint, and this PC for any of the PowerPoints I've used recently. Click the button and it will simply open that PowerPoint in the side slab here. So let's try. The demo gods haven't been friendly today, but let's give it a quick try and see if it'll work. So I'll open the PowerPoint slide and drag it onto screen, which you should see now. I'll scroll down a little bit to here, and I'm going to click the home and reuse slides. So there we go. It's run off to find some slides. So I'll go over to this one here, which was from a webinar we did the other week. I've clicked on that, and now it's actually opening all the slides in preview that were in that PowerPoint. I can simply insert all, and it will simply insert them into this deck. I can open the PowerPoint in a separate window, or in a second I can pick a specific slide out of here. And again, I'm stretching the power of this PC too much with a live demo and a live broadcast. It won't do it on this PC. I might need to request a new laptop, but it just allows you to bring in individual slides from multiple decks, search for a slide deck that you've used previously, and not have to duplicate, not even have to copy and paste it from one to another. Select which slides you want to put in and put it into your slide order there. Really powerful tool to help you work in a most effective way. Got 2 more minutes before I take the questions, so I think, and I'll get the team to bring questions in a second, but I will cover those accessibility points because I think it is something that we really need to be able to do, and it's one of my passions as a dyslexic communicator. I use some of these tools as well. So remember, you have got your dictate button that's available in many of your products, including Word and Outlook. Your translate and accessibility checkers are all in there as well. Speaker Coach can be really powerful as well. I mentioned closed captions, but use them in normal meetings. Pop the captioning up, it really does help. The popping out a presentation if you're on multiple screens, blocking the backgrounds can be really powerful as well. But I'm just going to show you what Immersive View can do for you. So I'll just head over to my window view again, and I'm heading over to Word. I'm going to open this document here. In the View tab here, one of the key things you've got is your immersive reader. Now, I'm showing you in the browser version. It's available in the desktop as well. So what I've done here is open this document and it's stripped out any of the silly formatting, the highlighting that we use to manage that. It can often help with reading and proofreading. I can change the font as how I want to read it. That's not changing the font of the document. It's just changing my view. And I can change the color tones to do that as well, to make it perhaps a little bit more pleasant to read. I can change the font size, all those things, and yet I'm not editing the actual document, changing anything. I can ask it. Some people like to bring out what the nouns and highlight them in colour, or the verbs in colour, which can help for reading things out. And you can even add little labels to it. Another element you can do is perhaps line focus. This is really good for proofreading. And sometimes when I'm doing a live webinar, I will actually turn this function on with the blackout and read it through a teletype to make it so I can scroll through and only focus on those handful of words at any time. Again, the original document remains exactly as it was before, but for proofreading and managing documents can be really easy to do. And of course, you've got your speech button in there as well.
Back to basics.
Wow, hopefully
Basics.
The audio is coming through.
Wednesday, the 8th of May, 2024.
So you can see an easy way of being able to proof a document, that you want to make sure is 100% right using all these tools. So whether you need accessibility tools or not, this can be really powerful. So I'm told there's a few questions coming in. I've been presenting for a little while now, so let's have a go and see if there's a couple of questions in there. Gemma, can you bring them in?
Yes, so the first one that's come in is we'd like to organise meetings in a Teams channel so everything's in one place. Unfortunately, any channel meeting gets automatically sent to every member of the group instead of just those people that were invited. Have you experienced this, and any advice on how to fix it?
That's the point of a Teams channel meeting, is that the whole point is when you hold a meeting, everybody in that channel should be invited to. So it's a matter of just making sure the membership of that channel is right, and you're only having the core people in, and then you invite the ad hoc guests into that team when they're needed, rather than having a team meeting with everybody using that function. You'd have to set it up in a different ways. Best advice I've got for that one. The others have got anything else to add to that?
No,
Rachel?
I don't. So.
I was just going to add, actually setting up a meeting independently now in your Teams calendar also now gives you a lot more functionality. So you can get all your notes in there, you can share files in there, you can really start to collaborate and kind of pull things together pre-meeting, and then have it afterwards as a place to look back on notes, catch up on recordings. So not completely answering your question, but it is an alternative way of setting up that meeting to keep things in one place.
Well, have we got any more?
There's one other, I think Rich has answered it, but we'll bring it in anyway. Has this environment been agreed as a way to log decisions for major incident purposes? Currently, we are using written decision logs.
We've actually got a Power App around that, haven't we, in the Power App catalogue? But yes, you could do. There is a decisions tab, but what I would recommend is something like a lists, where you can record your decisions in lists associated to the meeting and have that audit trail. That works really well as a solution. There is a couple of things in the solutions catalog which can help with that. Everything in this environment is official sensitive. It's protected environment. It's logged. If you mark it in Teams, it's a good place to do it. Record the meeting, record the actions, put them in your notes. And we're using more and more the meeting notes and decisions log, which is a really powerful way when you're running a meeting. And I'll get a couple of colleagues perhaps demonstrate that in a few weeks' time, where you can use the meeting notes and functionality to actually create all your decision logs in that element and forward everybody who attended a meeting a quick catch up afterwards. If you do want any more, go over to the Solutions Catalogue and you'll be able to find more information. Solutions Catalogue has got some of the solutions that we've got in there, really easy to access through the website, or if you've already a member, you can go straight to it in the secure space. So do use that. Remember, if you click on this and you get that button, you're not a member of the Force Collaboration channel. So head back, click on the website and request access. If you're a police.uk user, we can set your access up really quickly to get you in and be able to access the solutions catalogue. Just conscious of time, we're getting close to past. Is there any more quick questions we need to cover before we close?
No, that's all of them.
I hope that's been useful. We could cover so many different things in a short time. Please try to use Outlook into Teams to say things. Only last week, I was having a conversation with 3 or 4 people in PDS through Outlook on an email chain, and people were coming into the conversation partway through. If we'd have done it on Teams, it would have been so much easier, and we wouldn't have had 18 emails to delete across the organisation. The chat would have been there. Remember to subscribe to our Wednesday webinars. They're always available for you, so you can join in and get involved in what's going on. I want to thank Rachel, Gemma and Rich for supporting us today. Remember, you can get in touch with us anytime through the website, scan the QR code. If you've got something you'd like us to cover, we are looking at doing some shorts on these sort of things, so you can pick up on the latest tips. And do go back and watch last week's webinar where James talks about how they've been doing 15 minutes worth of training to bring people to cover some of the basics like we've covered today. But in the meantime, thanks for watching.